the contractor who built an empire bigger than a nation. The rain poured relentlessly over the broken streets of a forgotten town. Tiny streams of muddy water flowed through cracked roads, while people hurried to escape the storm. Amid the chaos, a young contractor named Daniel Carter stood in worn-out boots, carrying a rusted toolbox over his shoulder. Every step reminded him of the weight he carried, not just bricks and cement, but the burden of keeping his family alive. Daniel wasn't born into wealth. He wasn't handed opportunities. His father had died when he was only 15, leaving behind nothing but unpaid debts and a tiny one-room house with a leaking roof. His mother passed away a few years later after battling illness they couldn't afford to treat. The only family Daniel had left was his younger sister, Emma. Emma was everything to him. She had raised his spirits through the darkest days, encouraging him whenever life seemed impossible. While Daniel spent long hours working at construction sites, Emma managed the tiny home, cooked simple meals, and dreamed of one day becoming a teacher. But dreams don't always survive poverty. One winter morning, Emma collapsed while preparing breakfast. Doctors diagnosed her with a serious heart condition. She needed immediate surgery. The hospital handed Daniel an estimate that felt like a death sentence. The amount was far beyond anything he had ever earned. Daniel begged relatives for help. No one answered. He visited local businessmen. They laughed. Banks rejected his loan applications because he had no collateral. For 3 heartbreaking days, Daniel barely slept. He sold his father's old watch. He sold his motorcycle. He even sold the tiny television that Emma loved watching every evening. Still, it wasn't enough. One evening, Daniel sat outside the hospital, staring at the bill in his trembling hands. For the first time in years, he cried, not because he was weak, but because he couldn't. He saved the only family he had left. Emma noticed him crying. She smiled despite her pain. "If I don't survive," she whispered, "promise me something." Daniel shook his head. "No." She held his hand. "Promise me that if you ever become successful, you'll make sure no brother ever has to choose between poverty and saving his sister." Those words carved themselves into Daniel's heart forever. The next morning, he returned to work, not because he had hope, because giving up would guarantee failure. He accepted every construction job available. He worked 16 to 18 hours a day. He learned masonry, electrical work, plumbing, structural engineering, architecture, project management. Whenever experienced workers rested during lunch, Daniel sat beside engineers asking questions. Some ignored him, others mocked him, but a few kind mentors shared their knowledge. Daniel filled old notebooks with everything he learned. Years passed. He slowly built a reputation for honesty. Unlike many contractors who used cheap materials, Daniel refused to compromise quality. His profits stayed small, but trust grew. Eventually, a retired businessman hired Daniel to renovate an abandoned warehouse. Daniel completed the project ahead of schedule and below budget. The businessman was stunned. Instead of paying him only the agreed amount, he offered Daniel something unexpected: a partnership. Together, they developed a small residential project. Every house sold within weeks. Daniel reinvested every dollar instead of buying luxury cars or expensive clothes. One project became 3. 3 became 10. 10 became entire neighborhoods. Within a decade, Daniel Carter Construction transformed into Carter Developments. His company didn't just build homes. It built schools, hospitals, bridges, factories, affordable housing, entire communities. People trusted his name more than any politician's promises. Soon Daniel launched his first master plan city. Critics predicted failure. Instead, families rushed to buy homes. The city included parks, hospitals, schools, playgrounds, libraries, and modern transportation. People finally experienced what a well-planned community looked like. Investors from around the world took notice. Daniel launched another city, then another. Soon, his company was developing dozens of massive housing societies across the country. His wealth exploded. Business magazines called him the greatest real estate visionary of his generation. But Daniel never forgot Emma's promise. Instead of buying private islands, he created the Emma Foundation, named after his beloved sister. The foundation offered completely free heart surgeries for children. It paid hospital bills for struggling families. It built orphanages. It opened schools where children studied without paying a single dollar. It established universities with scholarships for poor students. Its CR needed thousands of free vocational training centers. Every evening, hundreds of community kitchens prepared fresh meals. No questions asked. Rich, poor, homeless, anyone could eat. Millions depended on Daniel's food programs. He funded mobile hospitals that traveled into remote villages. Doctors treated patients who had never seen proper medical care. Ambulances operated free of charge. When floods destroyed villages, Daniel rebuilt them. When earthquakes struck, his engineers arrived before government officials. During economic crises, he distributed food packages to millions. Television channels began comparing his welfare network to the government's own services. Some journalists made a shocking statement. Daniel Carter feeds more people than the National Welfare Department. People started calling him the Builder of Hope. His popularity reached extraordinary heights. International investors poured billions into his developments. Foreign governments invited him to build smart cities. Within a few more years, Daniel's personal wealth exceeded anything the nation had ever seen. Economists estimated that his companies generated more annual revenue than several government ministries combined. His charitable foundation became one of the largest private humanitarian organizations on earth. People admired him. Children looked up to him. Workers loved him because he paid fair wages. The poor prayed for him every day. But not everyone celebrated his success. Inside government offices, powerful politicians watched with growing resentment. One man should never become more powerful than the state, one minister declared. Behind closed doors, meetings were held. Influential businessmen feared Daniel's transparency. Corrupt officials hated his refusal to pay bribes. Competitors couldn't defeat him fairly, so they chose another path. Government agencies suddenly launched investigations. Tax authorities froze company accounts. Banks received secret instructions to limit his financing. Television stations aired endless accusations. Anonymous sources claimed Daniel had committed financial crimes. Then came the biggest shock. Authorities announced multiple criminal cases against him. Money laundering, fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy. Every accusation dominated national headlines. Yet investigators struggled to produce convincing evidence. Employees remained loyal. Auditors defended his records. Independent experts questioned the allegations. Millions of citizens gathered outside courts demanding justice. Social media exploded with support. People carried signs saying, "Don't punish the man who built our future." But pressure continued. Several executives from Daniel's company were arrested. Construction projects stalled. Political leaders insisted that no one was above the law. Daniel understood the message. The issue wasn't justice. It was power. After consulting legal experts and fearing for the safety of his employees and family, Daniel made the most painful decision of his life. He quietly left the country. The government celebrated. They believed his empire would collapse. Instead, something remarkable happened. Daniel relocated to another nation that welcomed investment and innovation. Within months, he established a new headquarters. International investors followed him. Thousands of skilled employees moved with him. His global projects expanded faster than ever. He launched smart cities across multiple continents. He invested in renewable energy, advanced hospitals, artificial intelligence, affordable housing, high-speed transportation. But despite living abroad, he never abandoned the people who needed him back home. Every month, thousands of trucks continued delivering food. Scholarships continued. Hospitals remained open. Children still received free surgeries. Villages still received clean drinking water. Disaster relief teams still responded immediately. His foundation operated independently from politics. It existed only to serve humanity. When asked during an international interview why he continued helping a country that had forced him into exile, Daniel smiled gently. "I never built my mission for governments," he said. "I built it for ordinary people. They didn't betray me. They believed in me. As long as I breathe, no hungry child should sleep without food. No patient should die because they are poor. And no dream should end simply because someone was born with nothing." Years later, history remembered Daniel Carter not merely as the richest property developer on earth, not simply as the man who built hundreds of cities, not as the billionaire whose wealth rivaled governments. History remembered him for something far greater. A poor contractor who once couldn't afford his sister's hospital bill changed the lives of millions. His buildings touched the sky. But his compassion reached even higher. And long after politicians were forgotten, entire generations continued living in the cities he built, studying in the schools he founded, receiving treatment in the hospitals he donated, and eating in the kitchens he established. Because true greatness is never measured by how much wealth a person owns. It is measured by how many lives they leave better than they found them.